Welcome to the Mortuary Masterclass, brought to you by the Champion Company, where preservation meets purpose, and every step is part of your journey to safer solutions. This episode, Difficult Cases, When Science Meets Experience. Ever walk into the prep room and know, almost immediately, this isn't going to be a routine case? Maybe it's advanced decomposition, maybe it's delayed embalming, maybe it's severe trauma, or maybe tissue gas has already begun its work before you even make your first incision. Every experienced embalmer has had one of those cases, the ones that make you stop, take a breath, and start thinking 3 steps ahead. Because difficult cases don't reward routine thinking. They reward knowledge, experience, and good judgment. Today, we're opening what we like to call the Prep Room Time Capsule. Champion has spent generations helping embalmers solve challenging cases, and tucked away in those archives are remarkable stories from the profession's past. Not because we're looking backward, but because understanding where we've been often helps us make better decisions today. The case we're discussing comes from the early 1950s. The chemistry was different. The equipment was different. Even some of the terminology has changed. But the challenge would feel very familiar to any embalmer listening today. A funeral home received a gentleman in his 60s who had been hospitalized with a severe streptococcal infection. Before he ever arrived at the preparation room, gas-producing bacteria had already begun breaking down tissue. The lower portion of the body was severely distended. Large fluid-filled blisters had formed. Skin slip was already extensive, and everyone in that room understood one thing. Time was no longer their ally. Now imagine standing in that prep room. You don't have today's chemistry. You don't have today's understanding of microbiology. You don't have the specialized products many of us rely on now. What you do have is your training, your experience, and a decision to make. The embalmer could have looked at that case and assumed there was little hope for a presentable viewing. Instead, he developed a plan. His first priority wasn't trying to save everything all at once. It was preserving what mattered most for the family, the face, the hands, and the areas that would allow loved ones to recognize the person they came to say goodbye to. That's something worth thinking about. Even with all the advances we've made over the decades, the principle hasn't changed. Successful embalming isn't just about chemistry, it's about priorities, assessment, and making thoughtful decisions under pressure. Now let's fast forward to today. One of the biggest differences between then and now is what we understand about the science behind difficult cases. When tissue gas develops, it's most commonly associated with bacteria from the Clostridium family, particularly Clostridium perfringens. These organisms thrive in environments where oxygen is limited. As they grow, they produce gas, release powerful enzymes, and rapidly break down muscle and connective tissue. The swelling you see, the odor, the discoloration, those aren't isolated problems. They're signs that decomposition is actively changing the chemistry of the tissues in front of you. Ever notice how some difficult cases seem to change by the hour? You leave the prep room for a short time, come back, and the case already looks different. That's because bacteria don't wait. Once conditions are favorable, decomposition continues until something interrupts the process. And that's where the embalmer's knowledge and modern chemistry begin working together. Here's another question. Have you ever had a case where your machine is building good pressure, your rate of flow looks right, but distribution simply isn't happening where you need it? Most of us have. And sometimes the problem isn't your equipment at all. As decomposition progresses, the vascular system begins losing its integrity. Blood vessels become less reliable. Gas pressure builds within tissues, and normal circulation pathways become compromised. Think of the circulatory system like a highway. On a routine case, traffic flows exactly where it's supposed to. But on a difficult case, some exits are closed, some bridges are damaged, and some destinations simply can't be reached through the usual route. Understanding why that's happening is often the first step toward deciding what to do next. And that's where today's embalmers have an advantage previous generation could only imagine. So, what does that advantage look like? It starts with understanding that difficult cases rarely have a single solution. They're often solved by combining good assessment, sound technique, and the right chemistry. Years ago, embalmers often relied on one preservative solution to do nearly everything. Today, we have the benefit of specialized chemistry designed for specialized challenges. That's an important milestone in our profession's journey towards safer solutions. Take tissue gas, for example. The objective isn't simply to introduce preservative, it's to interrupt bacterial activity, support preservation, reduce odor, and create the best possible conditions for restoration and presentation. Those goals often require more than one approach working together. That's why many embalmers today combine strong arterial preservation with targeted cavity treatment and localized applications when conditions call for them. Products like Champion's Cavity 48 and Omega Decomp Factor were developed with those challenging situations in mind, not to replace sound embalming practices, but to complement them. Because even the best chemistry performs at its highest level when it's guided by an embalmer who understands the case in front of them. And here's something that's easy to overlook. Sometimes the greatest tool in the prep room isn't found on the chemical shelf, it's observation. Take a few extra moments before mixing your solution. Look closely at the tissues. Evaluate discoloration. Notice areas of firmness or softness. Consider where decomposition has progressed and where viable vascular pathways may still exist. Those few minutes of assessment can influence every decision that follows. Another area where our profession has evolved is how we think about protecting ourselves. The historical case focused almost entirely on preserving the decedent. Today, we recognize that protecting the embalmer is just as important. Organizations like CDC, NIOSH, and OSHA continue to emphasize proper ventilation, appropriate PPE, exposure reduction, and safe chemical handling whenever we're working around infectious materials and embalming chemicals. Those practices aren't about replacing tradition. They're about building on it. Every generation has contributed something valuable to this profession, and protecting the people in the prep room is one of the most important advances we've made. Think about how far embalming has come. We've gained a deeper understanding of microbiology. We've developed more specialized chemistry. We've improved our equipment. We've strengthened our safety practices. Those aren't departures from the profession's legacy. They're the next step forward. If the embalmer from that 1950s case could walk into a modern preparation room today, I think he'd recognize something immediately. The commitment, the professionalism, the determination to provide every family with the very best opportunity for a meaningful farewell. What would probably amaze him are the tools now available to support those same goals. Advanced arterial chemistry, specialized cavity treatments, better safety equipment, a deeper scientific understanding of decomposition. The mission hasn't changed. Our ability to accomplish it has continued to evolve. And maybe that's the biggest lesson from today's Prep Room Time Capsule. History isn't something we leave behind. It's something we learn from. Every difficult case handled decades ago helped shape the techniques, chemistry, and standards that benefit embalmers today. So the next time you find yourself standing over a case that seems overwhelming, remember this. Take a breath. Trust your training. Assess before you act. Build a plan. And remember that difficult cases aren't won through guesswork. They're won through knowledge, preparation, and thoughtful decisions. The original article closed with a simple but powerful statement. It reminded readers that the embalmer, not the difficult case, was master of the situation. More than 70 years later, that message still resonates. Maybe we'd phrase it a little differently today. Difficult cases don't define great embalmers. The decisions made during those difficult cases do. Thanks for tuning in to this special edition of the Mortuary Masterclass. Until next time, keep doing what you do best. Championing the prep room with purpose, because embalmers matter. And every step forward is part of your journey to safer solutions. That's the champion difference.